The thing about our block is everybody smiles with their teeth. Even the mailboxes look like they're grinning, painted to match shutters and HOA-approved hydrangeas. We have an annual block party that feels like a victory lap for smugness. Craft beer, reclaimed wood photo booths, bunting measured to code. I used to like it. I used to like a lot of things. The first itch wasn't fireworks or a pink lipstick smear or anything you'd see on a TV show. It was my car seat. Not mine, technically. The driver's seat in our Honda, which has been molded to my behind for 10 years of commuting. Suddenly, it started sitting back like a teenager slouching. I'd get in and my toes would barely graze the pedals. I asked my wife, Mara, if she'd taken the car. Just yoga, she said, tossing it away like a gum wrapper. Yoga doesn't require moving the seat like you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I shrugged and nudged the track forward, chalked it up to nothing. That's how you lose the first point in a game you don't know you're playing. Then came the Tupperware. Not ours, theirs. Pale blue lids, masking tape labels with Sharpie. Tatum, Finn, Bo. Those are the neighbors' kids, the Griffin's little rolling storms. We don't have kids. We don't even have a dog. They were short on time, Mara said, stacking casseroles like she ran a soup kitchen. Just helping. Helping is one dish. For his choreography, little things started collecting in the basket by our door. A rubber bouncy ball with a tiny bite mark, a hair tie that wasn't Mara's color, a parking stub for the municipal lot behind the bowling alley. The bowling alley has a new pinball room. I know this because suddenly Mara did. Did you know the 1979 Bally Paragon has a split-level playfield? She asked one night while I was scraping baked-on ziti off a pan labeled Tatum. She said it like she'd always known. I didn't even know what split-level meant outside of ranch houses. Our neighbor Jeff, Griffin, father of Tatum and Finn and Bo, talks about pinball the way ship captains talk about the sea. I've heard him at the curb, spinning tales about drop targets and back glasses, leaning on his illegal shed like it's a podium. I started keeping a mental list. The seat, the Tupperware, the pinball trivia, the cedar smell in her clothes after yoga, like she rolled around inside a cigar box. The dog, Sadie, the Griffin's shepherd mix, waiting by Mara's driver's door in the mornings, tail wagging like she knew the schedule better than I did. Dogs don't invent routines, they learn them. I'm not proud of what I did next. Pride is for before. I checked the calendar on the fridge. I checked the HOA newsletter I write. Okay, ghostwrite. For our secretary, because I'm a sucker who volunteers. I checked the bylaws I'd been revising to streamline garbage day and mailbox heights, the way some people do Sudoku. Paper is honest, at least. It doesn't blush. That week, the block party planning committee declared this year needed to be interactive. Last year, the dunk tank wasn't inclusive. They wanted a scavenger hunt. I volunteered so fast, I almost tore my rotator cuff. No one noticed. They were busy arguing about whether cornhole could be branded adult beanbag toss without sounding worse. You might think I jumped right to torches and pitchforks. I didn't. I'm not built for drama. I'm built like our Honda. Practical, resilient, a little dented. But there's something about being treated like a coat rack that makes you learn a new language overnight. Mine was loopholes. Yoga ran long, Mara said, drifting in at 9:15, hair in a knot that wasn't her normal knot. It smelled like a campfire, but sweeter. Cedar, the kind you get from a humidor. I gave a half hug and my shirt picked up the scent like it was taking notes. Cedar exists in exactly 2 places on our block, Jeff's illegal shed and Jeff himself. He thinks cigars make him classic. They make him smell like a tool chest. I wanted to ask, do they teach Savasana with cigars now? Instead, I asked if she wanted tea. I stood there stirring honey into steam and watched her scroll on her phone, thumb doing lazy loops. When you live with someone, you learn the shapes their lies make in the air. Hers looked like a smoke ring. The next morning, I pretended to forget my lunch and circled back from the end of the street. Sadie was there, exactly on time, sitting at our curb like an Uber passenger. When Mara came out in leggings and the hoodie she wears when she wants to look like she wasn't trying, Sadie sprang up and did that full-body wag. Mara laughed, her good laugh, the one that used to be for me, and scratched behind the dog's ear. She opened the passenger door. Sadie didn't hesitate. The seat had been moved back again. The world didn't tilt. It didn't crack. It just got quiet in a way that made the birds sound guilty. I went to the bowling alley that evening, told myself I needed a game to clear my head. I'm lousy at bowling, but bad luck looks normal there. The pinball room was brighter than church, all glass and lights and chimes spelling out nostalgia. Jeff was there. Why wouldn't he be? Lecturing a teenager about the subtleties of dead flips. He didn't see me. I didn't hide. I just stood and watched him being the sort of expert that only exists when an audience doesn't know better. On the walk home, I cut through the municipal lot. There's a path behind the dumpsters that pops you out by the creek, the same creek with the bridge where people tack up lost cat flyers. There, in the shade, was a footprint on the dusty bank like a pressed leaf. Mara's sneaker, the gray ones with the little teal slash. Next to it, a bigger print with a waffle pattern like Jeff's lawn mowing shoes. I crouched like I was checking the soil for tomatoes and thought, okay, so it's not just in my head. I don't do confrontations. I do plans. My cousin once said I could schedule a thunderstorm. Half a truth. What I can do is read bylaws until the margins squeak and notice the clauses other people skim. There's a section in ours about conduct unbecoming for officers that I'd rewritten last quarter after a dust-up about someone swearing on the neighbor's Facebook group. Unbecoming used to mean cussing during a meeting. I widened it to cover any behavior that brought the HOA into disrepute. Legalish. Vague. Terrifying if you have secrets. I slept on the couch that night, because my back. In the middle of the night, I woke to the cedar smell, a ghost sinking through the room. It made me think of my granddad's tackle box, that mix of wood and oil and patience. I thought about how I'd fix a tangled fishing line. You don't yank, you tease. You work the knot loose by finding where it started. In the morning, Mara was bright. Too bright. She asked if the scavenger hunt needed prizes. Thinking raffle tickets, I said. Compliance-themed. I watched the word hit her ear, compliance. It didn't stick. It never does if you think rules are for everyone else. If our block had a skyline, it would be identical roofs and one outlaw silhouette. Jeff's shed. He calls it a garden studio, which is adorable, the way raccoons are adorable right before they knock over your trash. The shed technically isn't allowed. Size, setback, materials, 3 strikes. He put it up anyway after consulting a friend at City Hall, which I later learned was a guy he once lent a socket wrench. I don't snoop, at least I didn't. But you can take a walk at lunch. You can pass by a shed door that's open a crack. You can smell cedar and lemon cleaner and something like perfume caught in the wood. And you can look at the calendar tacked inside, little circles around certain weekdays, yoga days. You can note the portable fan, the little Bluetooth speaker, the second set of keys on a nail labeled M. Not subtle, but then, neither is betrayal. It doesn't whisper. It clears its throat and hopes you stay polite. I didn't rush in. I didn't take pictures. Not yet. I wrote down the inventory in my head like I was stocking shelves. I traced my route on the map that lives in my brain: creek bridge, pinball room, municipal lot, shed. All walkable. All noonish. All places that make excuses easy and lessons hard. That night Mara told me Jeff's wife, Angela, had asked her if we could join the block party committee. We're already on it, I said. In fact, I'm running the scavenger hunt. Mara gave me a look I couldn't read. For a second, I wondered if I'd gotten the story wrong. When you love someone, your brain insists on giving them every out. Then she glanced at her phone, and whatever was soft in me went quiet again. I started drafting clues. Not obvious ones. Poetry that pointed where I wanted the whole neighborhood to walk, together, smiling, powerless. The first clue would be about where the ball bounces but doesn't sink, which could be any kid's trampoline. But the answer would be the pinball room because I'd reward teams with a free play ticket when they landed right. The second would be where the river wears a sweater, our tiny creek under its green arch of vines. The third would be the little house that never sleeps, which is our HOA nickname for Jeff's shed, because a certain somebody keeps the light on all day for airing. You take people in a circle, you make them feel safe in the pattern, and then you let the pattern snap shut. On Thursday, I tested my route, eyes on a clipboard. An old man walking a pug asked if I was counting steps for the newsletter again, and I said yep. The truth is easy if you tell it sideways. I snapped pictures, finally. Not of people, of places. The calendar inside the shed, the illegal power strip snake-tongued into a daisy chain, the portable heater he's not supposed to run because of fire code, the gap in the fence that makes a perfect shortcut from the municipal lot. Nothing salacious, everything boring. Bureaucracy loves boring. It's how it eats. That night, Mara came in smelling like cedar and eucalyptus. New yoga studio? I asked, and she blinked like a porch light. Pop up, she said. Outdoor. I smiled and said I'd make turkey burgers. I watched her bite into hers and worried about the thin line of grease on her lip because I still love her. That stubborn ache you can't evict with logic. During dishes, she said, "You're being nice." I said, "I'm being me." When you decide to set a trap, you learn something ugly about yourself. You don't want justice, not really. You want symmetry. You want them to step into the exact geometry of what they built and feel, for once, how the angles cut. The bylaws used to be a pamphlet. Now they're a document. I made them that way, with track changes and cross-references and tiny bullets that look like birdshot. People think HOA power is about fines. It isn't. It's about who shows up to meetings and who's willing to read page 12, subsection C, while everyone else is yawning. Quarter 2, I'd added a clause to conduct and eligibility, a tidy little line. Any officer or committee head whose conduct, on or off common property, brings the association into disrepute may be deemed ineligible to serve by majority vote. It's the on or off that matters. It widens the road. I also slipped in a compliance raffle concept, my joke at first. Participation trophies for following the rules. I wrote it as a voluntary pilot engagement initiative. People clapped because it sounded like free stuff. Free stuff wins elections better than truth. I baked lemon bars the night before the party. The kitchen smelled like sugar and acid, and for a while it covered the cedar. I set aside a plate for the Griffins. I'm not a monster. I'm a neighbor. The morning of, I walked the route with a box of laminated clue cards and blue painter's tape. At the creek, the water made that polite sound it makes here, like it's sorry to be cutting through property lines. At the bowling alley, the pinball room doors were propped open, and a guy with a mustache like a movie extra handed me free play coupons. Community outreach, he said. Sure. I set the third clue near the shed, not on it. That would be too loud. I taped it to the alley fence, where you could see the shed door blinking in the corner of your eye. The clue read, where rules take naps and would keep secrets. Poetic enough to pass, sharp enough to bite if you were looking. By noon, the grills were going and the folding tables sagged under potato salad, deviled eggs, and a casserole with masking tape labeled Finn. I kept my face still. Angela's laugh clinked around like ice cubes. Jeff wore a shirt with a tiny embroidered pinball on the sleeve, because of course he did. Mara flitted like a dragonfly, bright and restless. She hugged me from behind once, like she remembered we were a team, and for a second I thought, call it off. Then I saw Sadie lying by the curb, head on her paws, facing our driveway. Hope is a magician. It makes doves out of napkins. I needed a broom. Scavenger hunters. I yelled, holding up a fistful of laminated cards. Everyone hooped. I laid out the rules. No trespassing, no cutting through hedges. Take a selfie at each station as proof. Last stop would be the HOA compliance raffle, half joke, half not, where we'd pull a grand prize. I had a clipboard. I had a hat. I had a smile that hurt my ears. Teams took off like bees. I hung back and watched patterns form. All those neighbors stitching up and down our street, laughing. It looked like a community. It looked like a life worth wanting. Then Angela placed a plastic fork in my hand like a truce and asked how work was. Busy, I said. You know how it is. She said, always, and her eyes slipped over my shoulder toward the municipal lot. The fork bent under my thumb. I checked the raffle table. On it sat a glass bowl for ticket stubs, a stack of bright red, "You're in compliance" stickers for the kids, and a manila envelope labeled Permit Hearing. Inside, printouts, photos, dates, the dull artillery of process. I had already filed the complaint. Today was about light. Mara swung by, breathless, hair lifting at the nape. We're on clue 3, she said. It's hard. I said, good, and offered her a lemon bar. She took one, and our fingers touched, and for a blink everything felt almost like it used to. Small, kind, ordinary. Then Jeff jogged up, cheeks flushed, and said, we're tied with the Millers. He looked at me like a buddy. I looked at the edge of his shirt where cedar dust clung like glitter. We funneled teams to the cul-de-sac at 2 sharp. The band did its cheerful covers. Kids ran in loops, faces sticky with popsicles. I took the microphone that we pretend is for speeches and tried not to think about how badly my hands were shaking. Welcome to the first ever HOA compliance raffle, I said, grinning. Today's grand prize is exciting. It's civic. It's educational. People laugh the way they laugh when future homework's being assigned to someone else. I had the clues projected on a foam board behind me. Each answer checked off with selfies, pinball room, creek bridge, alley fence. No one seemed to notice the triangle those points made. I did. That's the thing about patterns, you can't unsee them. I started small. Gift cards for the garden center. A coupon for a free car wash. A golden trash can sticker for most improved bin storage. Warm-up acts. People clapped, shouted friendly boos. Then I took a breath and pulled out the manila envelope. Last prize, I said. This one's for anyone who loves fair play. I clicked the remote. On the portable screen we use for movie night, up popped a photo of the shed door, calendar visible, dates circled. Murmurs. Slide 2. The power strip chain, with the code reference number in neat text underneath. Slide 3. The lot to shed shortcut, a path stamped into the grass like a confession. No faces. No names. Just facts. This, I said, careful, kind, is an accessory structure that does not comply with size, setback, or electrical safety. The city has been notified. A hearing is scheduled for next Thursday. I looked at Jeff without looking at him. I looked at my wife without looking at her. The grand prize is realignment. We all get our blocks back. You could hear the band stop their tune like a record scratching in a sitcom. Someone said, "Oh." Someone else said a word we don't put in the newsletter. Jeff's face went through a few weather systems, surprised, indignant, stormy, then that clear noon that comes after, when there's nothing left to pretend. Angela's mouth was a line. Say what you will about her. She knows a contour map when she sees one. Mara's hand jerked toward mine, and then pulled back like the table was hot. Sadie whined at the curb, as if someone had stepped on her tail. I thought this was fun, Jeff said, trying a laugh that wanted to be a fist. A game, right? It is, I said gently. Games have rules. There's a reason I didn't show people. Not them. Not their mistakes. I showed the shed. I wanted the light to land on the wood, the power cords, the wrongness baked into the beams. When you make it about people, they dodge. When you make it about code, they freeze. I put down the mic. I let the silence do the part one couldn't. Then I picked up the clipboard with officer eligibility forms, routine, innocuous, and moved us on to the one agenda item everyone forgets is on the block party schedule, nominations. We do it every year, between the pie contest and the overcooked burgers, because that's when you have a quorum and everyone's too full to say no. Any nominations for HOA president? I said, voice steady now. A few hands fluttered toward Jeff. Habit. Angela lowered hers. Mara didn't look at anyone. I'll stand, I said. Anyone else? I asked the crowd. Wind chimes. A squirrel. Someone's kid yelling about a frisbee. Jeff looked at his shoes. Mara turned her face toward the creek. I waited the legally required 10 seconds. It took 3. Moved and seconded, I said. Unopposed. Here's the thing they don't tell you about winning. It doesn't fix the dent in your heart. It just makes it symmetrical. The city sent a crew on Monday to sticker the shed with a notice that peeled at the corners in the heat. Thursday, the permit board met in a room with humming fluorescent lights and a flag. I didn't have to say much. The pictures did the talking. Jeff did some talking too, the defensive kind that melts under rules. The vote was unanimous. Fines. Tear down. Restore to compliant condition within 30 days. Bureaucracy again, chewing. That night, the shed's light stayed off for the first time in months. The backyard looked like any other. A square of grass, a fence, a dark shape waiting its turn with a sledgehammer. Mara sat on our steps and watched the dark like it might blink and explain itself. She didn't deny anything. She also didn't confess. We spoke in the diplomatic language you learn when you've shared a grocery list for a decade. I'm sorry floated around without a subject. I said me too, because I was sorry about the shed, about the hunt, about the person I had to become to make the math add up, about the car seat in a position where my legs didn't reach. The next HOA meeting was tidy. Attendance was high. We passed the compliance raffle permanently with modifications. We adjusted the language around outbuildings and electrical safety. We added a clause about resignations for conduct unbecoming. 2 officers stepped down that night, the head of social, Mara, and the chair of landscaping, Jeff. No argument. No fight. They signed their names and handed me their lanyards like you surrender a hotel key you forgot wasn't yours to keep. I took the long way home after, past the creek, past the municipal lot, past the bowling alley where the pinball machines hummed toward nobody. I cut across the alley and paused by the fence. The clue card I'd taped there was gone. Only a blue square of painter's tape clung to the slat, stubborn as a bandage. I touched it like it could tell me if I'd healed anything or just scabbed it over. People kept telling me I was so strong. I didn't feel strong. I felt like a guy who knows how to print agendas and pay invoices and ask for 3 bids on a pressure washing contract. I felt like someone who can make a plan and follow it to the polite, inevitable end. Mara moved her yoga classes to mornings at the actual gym. The car seat stopped lying. The Tupperware dried up. Sadie still waited by the curb for a week, insulted by the missing routine, before accepting her demotion back to ordinary dog. Sometimes, late, I sit in the driveway with a beer and listen to the neighborhood shift on its foundations. Somebody runs a leaf blower. Somebody laughs too loud on a phone. Somewhere, a pinball bumper lights and waits for a ball that isn't coming. I think about symmetry again. About how I didn't want to humiliate anyone. I wanted the truth to have to look at itself. We're not divorced. We're not fine. We're in that middle place where you talk about little things, trash day, tomatoes, whether the new mailboxes look too modern, and let your hands learn how to be in the same kitchen. Maybe we'll make it. Maybe we'll sell the house to a couple who thinks the lemon bars are from scratch and that the HOA is just about flags and fences. I won't warn them otherwise. They'll learn. At the next block party, the scavenger hunt will be gentle again. Clues about birdhouses and porch gnomes and the park with the really lopsided swing. I'll keep the raffle. I'll keep the bylaws. I'll make sure the prizes are harmless. Gift cards, a potted fern, a golden trash can sticker. On the back of each ticket, though, I might print a line in tiny type, something like a benediction or a dare. Games have rules. So does love. And if the car seat ever lies to you again, move it back, look straight ahead, and don't forget who you are when your feet find the pedals. Subscribe to the channel